Civil war, betrayal, death, and dynastic rule. These were all characteristics of Japan's feudal period, which lasted from 1185 to 1868. It was an era of political turmoil, shoguns, and warring states. This era of Japan is notorious for being its bloodiest time period, as power lost from the emperor fell into the hands of rival warlords. So what caused this shift in power? The feudal period began with the Kamakura period, which began with the defeat of the Taira family by the Minamotos in 1185. The Minamotos then set up a bakufu, or tent government. The bakufu consisted of daimyos who reported to shoguns or military generals who were essentially rival warlords. Shoguns frequently fought each other over honor, land, political power, etc. Hence the name the Warring States period. Although there was an emperor present, he and his court held no real political power, as the shoguns were the ones who asserted and exercised their power through military force. It is difficult to pinpoint or clearly state who held power during this interval of time, as various families and shoguns came into power and were subsequently overthrown by another shogun or family quite often. One of the most notable shoguns was the ruthless Nobunaga, who overthrew the Ashikaga family in 1534 and led various overseas endeavors to conquer new lands. Japan remained relatively isolated during this period. Two Mongol invasions in 1274 and 1281 were repelled by the Minamoto's bakufu with the help of powerful storms called kamikaze by the Japanese, who believed they had divine power. Several invasions of mainland Asia and the Philippines by shogun leader Nobunaga later on also failed. Japan only received occasional visits by Western or Asian traders who revered Japan as a land of mystery and exotic goods. Despite this policy of isolationism, Japan still experienced internal cultural and religious shifts during the feudal period, as Japan entered a time period where honor, social class, and respect were major components of society. People were almost mandated by social norms to follow tradition and law, which was often controlled by the shogun. Garments, typically kimonos, were worn by nearly all. They were comprised mainly of silk and often displayed the beauties of nature. Kimonos were worn by both genders. The intricacy of the design was determined by one's social class. Men grew out their hair as they got older to represent their wisdom. Older men and samurai wore more plain colors and basic designs like dark shades of gray to show modesty, while children wore vibrant colors to represent youth. Women of greater social status and wealth wore elaborate headpieces. Diets often consisted of regional vegetables and mushrooms, and the Japanese main source of protein was seafood, as one would expect due to its position in the ocean. The boiling of tea killed germs in the water the Japanese drank, which gave them the perception that tea had healing properties. In terms of religion, the three most prevalent religions in Japan at this time were Buddhism, Shinto, and Shugendo, which was a sort of hybrid between the first two. Buddhism, namely Zen Buddhism, was once the religion of Japanese monks but was adopted by the general populace and samurai over time, as they began to seek salvation from the perpetual and ongoing civil wars. All three religions placed an emphasis on the unification of one with nature and their respective gods, and the goal of enlightenment. Buddhism was threatened several times by shoguns like Nobunaga, who wanted to purge the landscape of religion through the burning of monasteries and the killing of practitioners. As shoguns exercised their power through military force, they required personal armies which came in the form of employable mercenaries like samurai and ninja. A samurai's training depended on what social class they were born into. Training started around 3 years old. Higher class children were sent to academies, and lower class children were trained by males in the family. Aside from being taught to excel in swordsmanship, samurai were also trained in horsemanship, archery, and hand-to-hand combat. On the other hand, there were the ninja, who were essentially Japan's assassins and were revered as silent killers. Ninja were taught in the art of stealth, agility, espionage, horsemanship, unarmed combat, spirit techniques, and the ability to execute assassinations in the art of ninjutsu. Warriors, most often samurai, followed a strict disciplinary and honorary code called the Feudal. Literal translation for the way of the ruler. This stems from the Japanese word bushi, name for the samurai. The Bushido warranted from samurai an unwavering loyalty to their masters in exchange for financial coverage, status as a warrior, shelter, etc. Samurai were expected to give their lives with no hesitation if necessary. Any disgrace like unloyalty or cowardice brought upon the samurai's masters was typically followed by the ritual seppuku, self-disembowelment, performed with a dagger-like knife. The feudal era of Japan ended with the Tokugawa shogunate, which consisted of members of the Tokugawa clan and had persisted since the end of the Warring States period in 1600. A coup in 1868 led to the shogunate being overthrown and Emperor Meiji overtaking control of Japan. Despite this abrupt ending to such a significant period in Japan's history, the feudal period's legacy still persists. The sort of honorary and formal social system and the emphasis for respect of one's elders and higher-ups still exists in modern Japan. Overall, the feudal period was a time of bloodshed and shifting of powers, but also the flourishing of culture and religion, making it one that cannot be forgotten in Japanese history.